welcome to Crime in Court. My name is Heather, and this is another episode of my wrongful conviction series. And today we're going to be talking about Toforest Johnson, who, as you can see from the title of this article, has spent more than 25 years on Alabama's D row. So let me shrink myself and let's get into it because it's a crazy story. So here we go. All right, so please hit that like button before we begin. It helps the YouTube algorithms, whatever the heck they are, because no one can seem to figure it out. But whatever it is, it helps. So thank you for liking. And even if you don't like, thank you for subscribing or just watching. I appreciate you. All right, so we're going to be talking, like I said, about Toforest Johnson. So he has spent more than 25 years on D row. The prosecutor in his case is actually asking for a new trial. So let's get into it. Mr. Johnson that is a picture of Mr. Johnson. All right, so Mr. Johnson's conviction relied on the word of a witness, sorry, an ear witness, not even an eyewitness, but an ear witness who was secretly paid for her testimony. How does this happen in our court system? How? Oh, this makes me so angry. All right, so update. This is obviously an updated article, but it's been on their Innocence projects. So I'm on the Innocence Project website, and this is their article about Toforest Johnson. So they always update their articles as new things occur in their cases. So this top part is the most current. All right, so on April 22nd, a juror who voted to sentence Toforest Johnson to D row wrote an op-ed stating that she is convinced Mr. Johnson is innocent and deserves a fair trial. Toforest Johnson has spent more than 25 years on D row in Alabama and is at risk of being executed for a crime he did not commit. In the early morning of July 19th, 1995, Jefferson County Deputy Sheriff William G. Hardy was shot twice and he lost his life in the parking lot of a hotel in Birmingham. This is like trial 4. A cop loses his cops sitting in a car out in public. That's a good target for anyone that might have some kind of grudge for that law enforcement officer, which he could be a crooked cop, which happened to be the case in trial 4, which I just did last week, which was the Sean Ellis case, which is based or not based on he is featured in Netflix's series titled Trial 4, and he almost had 4 trials, but luckily the state finally dropped his charges before he went to the 4th trial to convict him. But this almost sounds the same because in Sean's case, it was a witness that they seemingly may have coerced, or she may have had ties to law enforcement or whatnot. And then the only reason Sean Ellis put himself in the parking lot that night to pick up diapers it was a Walgreens parking lot. So anybody could have been there. Anybody could have been driving by. This cop was crooked, and just in case you weren't paying attention, and it could have been anybody. But even if you're not a crooked cop, it could be any criminal that might have a bone to pick with you because you put them away or something. I mean, it can't. We need to stop being so narrowly focused on suspects in this country. It's really a problem. It puts away a lot of the wrong people. All right, so this was a Jefferson County Sheriff Deputy William G. Hardy, July 19th, 1995. 5 different young black men were arrested and charged in connection with the crime, but only Mr. Johnson was convicted. Mr. Johnson, who has consistently maintained his innocence, was sentenced to D row in 1998 and has been on D row for more than a quarter century. Can you imagine that? Put yourself in Mr. Johnson's shoes and imagine living half your life on D row instead of half of your life, doing the things that you've been doing and being free, having freedoms that Mr. Johnson hasn't had. It's really so sad when you I try to put myself in people's shoes or at least try to empathize with them as best I can. And I just can't even imagine. I would have no hope, is what I'm trying to say. So the people that do this are stronger than me. I'm like tearing up because I would be so out of hope if it were me. So I give these men and women who are wrongfully convicted, sitting in prison, I give them so much credit. All right, sorry. All right, blink the tears out. All right, so only Johnson was convicted. Mr. Johnson, who has consistently maintained his innocence, was sentenced to D row in 1998. More than a quarter century he's been on D row, despite no physical evidence or eyewitness testimony connecting him to the crime scene. The key evidence the state presented was the ear witness. Remember, I said it wasn't an eyewitness, it's an ear witness. So somebody didn't even see him with their own eyes. It was someone who supposedly heard him. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think ear witnesses are very credible. If eyewitnesses aren't credible, how are ear witnesses credible? I don't know. But here we are 25 plus years later. So the key witness was the ear witness was a woman named Violet Ellison, who claimed that she overheard a man named Toforest confess to the crime in a snippet of an eavesdropped phone call. Here are 6 things you need to know about Mr. Johnson's case. Number 1, at least 10 eyewitnesses placed Mr. Johnson 4 miles away from the scene of the crime. Mr. Johnson and his friend, like, how does this happen? He has alibi witnesses. And yet, here we stand. Mr. Johnson and his friend Ardragos Ford were at the so him and his friend Ford were at the downtown Birmingham nightclub T's Place at the time that Deputy Hardy's life was lost in the hotel parking lot across the street. So did he say it was gunned down or shot twice? Yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure. All right. So Mr. Ford was in a wheelchair, and as many as 10 different witnesses remember seeing them together that night. So that's pretty remarkable. I mean, that's an identifier, someone in a wheelchair. You would remember seeing that. Even if you weren't paying attention to anything else, you probably peripherally saw someone in a wheelchair. So that makes a lot of sense that a lot of different people remember seeing them there. So Toforest Johnson, quote, Toforest Johnson, I remember he was pushing Ardragas forward in the wheelchair. They came together. Said one of those witnesses, who is named Barbetta Hunt. She told that to Beth Shelburne in the acclaimed Ear Witness podcast. So I did not know that this podcast existed when I chose this topic to discuss today. I now have since downloaded all of the episodes and I haven't listened to them yet, but I have them ready to go because I'm really ready to dive even deeper into this case. All right, so number two, the prosecution presented five different theories about who took the life of Deputy Hardy. So that's reasonable doubt. That's five doubts right there. If you gave five theories, just like the Karen Reed case, the prosecution has given multiple theories and they're all over the place. That's doubt. That's reasonable doubt right there. Police did not know who took Deputy Hardy's life, and they had no physical evidence or eyewitness testimony. They could not make their minds about make up their minds. Sorry, they could not make up their minds about how Deputy Hardy's life was lost and who took his life. Prosecutors ultimately ended up presenting five different mutually exclusive theories of the homicide at five different court proceedings. Wow. That's pretty much like the Commonwealth in Karen Reed. All right, so before, just that they keep changing their theory and their facts keep changing when new evidence emerges. During trial, even as things were emerging, their timeline was shifting and they were blowing up their own timeline throughout trial. It's crazy. So it's crazy to me that jurors don't see through this. We are not, this is why I'm so interested in watching court cases because we're not as educated as we could be in our legal system. I know I'm not. I don't have a legal mind, but I want to know what happens. And all of us should be watching our surroundings and our public figures and making sure that these trials are going on in a fair manner for the defendants and the victims, whoever they might be. But ultimately, I mean, the defendant is the one who has the rights in a trial. And a lot of times I see that get trampled, especially with the media. So it's very unsettling. All right, so before a grand jury, the lead detective testified that there was, quote, no doubt that Mr. Ford and another man, Omar Berry, not Mr. Johnson, had shot Deputy Hardy. Okay, so a grand jury, this is just a jury basically to get the charges to indict the person to arrest them. So a grand jury hears the evidence, and if they hear, if the evidence meets their minimal burden of it's not even reasonable doubt, it's like I can't remember what the burden is off the top of my head, but it's very easy. They say you can indict a ham sandwich is like the saying because you can indict anything as long as, you don't have a defense attorney present or a judge. You can do anything if you're just the prosecutor with a bunch of jurors. You can say whatever you want. In a lot of cases, they do. All right, so under oath, the lead detective recounted his understanding of the crime and how he believed it unfolded. Ardragas Ford spins in his wheelchair, pulls up a 9mm, and fires a shot. After he fires the shot, the deputy starts to stumble down the hill, at which time he was shot again by Omar Berry. In the 3 years following this grand jury proceeding, prosecutors changed their theory of the case repeatedly and never settled on one story. Multiple young black men were charged with capital homicide, but only one was ever convicted and sentenced to to D row, and that is Toforest Johnson. So it's interesting that they had multiple suspects, not just suspects, but charged suspects. I mean, they went through the whole process of actually proceeding with charges on these suspects. So why were those people let go and to Forrest, the one that they chose? It's so odd sometimes how law enforcement decides to do their cases, and it doesn't make sense. Number three, the state's case relied on the testimony of a witness who was secretly paid $5,000 for her testimony, and that is highly, highly, highly illegal, I would think. would hope that something happened here for this, because of this. All right, so after the state of Alabama announced a $5,000 reward for information on the case, Ms. Ellison approached the police. Ms. Ellison testified that she eavesdropped on a three-way phone call and heard a man who said that his name was Toforest confess to the crime. The two didn't know each other and had never met, but her testimony became the centerpiece of the state's case against Mr. Johnson. This is just crazy. She takes a reward and lies to get this guy convicted and to get the reward, basically. And I'm sure there was no three-way phone call. Jeff Wallace, the lead prosecutor, testified under oath in 2014 that he didn't, quote, think the state's case was very strong because it depended on the testimony of Violet Ellison. In 2019, the state finally disclosed that it secretly paid Ms. Ellison $5,000 for her testimony after denying it for 17 years. Holy misconduct, Batman. That's pretty bad. This revelation prompted three of the jurors who had voted to convict Mr. Johnson to call for a new trial. Three of the jurors came forward and said, we want Mr. Johnson to have a new trial because if we had known that, we probably would have changed our vote. They never would have voted to convict if they had known Ms. Ellison had expected payment for her testimony. Right there. Three jurors say that. So those are the only jurors that maybe have come forward. There might be more that thought that or would have felt the same way. We just don't know. All right, so in October 2023, the Ear Witness podcast revealed that Ms. Ellison was the state's star witness in at least 5 other criminal cases. Holy cow, including cases that ended in acquittals and dismissals when her testimony fell apart. So she's going around lying in all these cases for the prosecutor, and eventually those cases fall apart or get dismissed or they get acquitted because the jury saw through it or whatever, because there wasn't the evidence. But she's going around and lying for the prosecution. Ear Witness also disclosed that even Ms. Ellison's own grandchildren, who said that she would do anything for $1 and is a true scam artist, don't trust her. That says a lot when your own family calls you a true scam artist and says that you would do anything for $1. That's pretty telling. Did we skip any photos here? I just want to make sure that I didn't. No, okay. I just want to point out photos. So right here we have Greater Birmingham Ministries Executive Director Scott Douglas, former Alabama Attorney General Bill Baxley, and Ear Witness podcast. I think they're presenting, I don't know. I didn't read that far here. I think they're presenting oh, that just went back to the same page. Here. All right, 4. Diverse voices. This is what this is about. All right, so 4. Diverse voices from across Alabama, including the lead trial prosecutor, support a new trial for Mr. Johnson. Bill Baxley, who served as Alabama's Attorney General in the 1970s and fought to bring back the DP to the state after the Supreme Court deemed it unconstitutional in 1972, is convinced. So he is a pro DP former AG. He's a former Attorney General who brought back D. Roe But he is saying he's convinced that Mr. Johnson is innocent and he's trapped on Alabama's D row. So that's saying something. Somebody who is pro D row saying that Mr. Johnson is in the wrong place. So Mr. Johnson's homicide trial was so deeply flawed, the evidence presented against him so thin that no Alabamian, am I saying that right? Alabaman should tolerate his incarceration, let alone his execution. That was Mr. Baxley from the Washington Post. I'll read that one more time without me interrupting the Alabamian. Mr. Johnson's homicide trial was so deeply flawed, the evidence presented against him so thin, that no Alabamian would tolerate his incarceration, let alone his execution. So his case was so bad. The case against him was so thin that there is no way anyone should convict him, let alone put him on D row. So Jeff Wallace, the original trial prosecutor, has also called for a new trial as has the elected Jefferson County District Attorney Danny Carr. Mr. Carr's office conducted a 9-month review of the case and concluded that the interests of justice demand a new trial. Both Republicans and Democrats across the state, including 3 former Alabama Supreme Court justices and 2 former Alabama governors, have also joined the call for a new trial for Mr. Johnson. If we have all these people behind, like in power behind this, how has it not happened yet? I don't understand. Why is it so freaking hard to get to overturn a conviction in this country? It is really a problem. Getting any kind of relief from appeals, anything, even getting heard on an appeal, it's ridiculous. This country locks them away and forgets about them. It's really sad. All right, number 5. The critically acclaimed podcast Ear Witness tells the shocking story of how an innocent man ended up on Alabama's D row and why he is still there. In her podcast, Ear Witness, Alabama based investigative journalist Beth Shelburne tells the story of her 2-year long investigation into a conviction that was based on the paid testimony of a single ear witness. The investigation asks, how did an innocent man end up on D row, and why is the state still trying to execute him over the objection of the prosecutor who put him there? It's a great question. In the 8-episode series, Mrs. Shelburne outlines the night Deputy Hardy was when his life was lost, and speaks to many of the key players in the case, including the lead detective, the lead prosecutor, and Ms. Ellison, the ear witness. One critic raved that the investigation reveals some of the most extraordinary tape I have heard in any podcast. So that's interesting. I'm definitely going to tune in if Ms. Ellison, the actual ear witness, is going to be interviewed. That's interesting. All right, number 6. Mr. Johnson faces execution for a crime he did not commit, but it's not too late to help stop this injustice. Mr. Johnson's lawyers continue to fight for a new trial in state and federal court. While there is no date set for Mr. Johnson's execution, his family and supporters are not idly waiting for it to be scheduled. Greater Birmingham Ministries is spearheading the effort to raise awareness about Mr. Johnson's case. So that's what they were doing at this ministries um, in this picture here. Where were we? Greater Birmingham Ministries is spearheading the effort to raise the awareness in this case. Using the slogan, "It's not too late to fix this mistake," the organization has engaged faith communities across Alabama in a banner tour campaign to reverse this tragic injustice and stop his execution. So I know they had a banner made up, and here you can see it. well, it's pictured, it gets toured around to all these different places, these different religious organizations. So, and it's got QR code so people can learn more about Toforest Johnson's case. So that's what the banner tour is. All right, so Mr. Johnson's daughter, Akiria, Akiria Lawler, who goes by the name Muffin, has also created a series of Instagram and TikTok videos to help the public understand what it is like to have a father on D row for a crime that he did not commit. I believe, I don't know how old she is, but I believe she was a very young girl when her father went to prison. All right, so this is Forrest's daughter, Cheyenne Poole, and cousin Tony Green with photos of Mr. Johnson. You can also get involved by signing the petition and spreading the word about this injustice. I will have a link below to the petition for you to sign. And the Innocence Project right now has filed 2 amicus briefs in support of a new trial for Mr. Johnson, one in the United States Supreme Court and one in Alabama's Jefferson County Circuit Court. So they are asking for a new trial, both county-wise and state-wise and federally. And we'll see what how it goes from there. I don't know how long it can take. It just takes how long it takes. So hopefully the Forest's family will eventually get some justice for their cousin, brother, father, their family member. I hope that Forest comes home soon. Again, don't forget to sign the petition. I'm going to link it down below in the comments or in the description. So please go and sign the petition to help Forrest Johnson get a new trial. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I really am interested to hear your take on these cases. I find them really interesting just because I really just don't like injustices and I don't like corruption. And I'm finding there's so much corruption under our noses that we just didn't even know. So it's really good to keep our government officials in check, keep our judges in check. And I'm talking to you, Judge Canoni, so much power over there in Norfolk County, Massachusetts. It's crazy. Yeah, we need better policing of our government. I'll leave it at that. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Please don't forget to hit the like button on your way out and take care, guys. I will see you in the next one. Bye now. If you've been impacted by a true crime and would like your story told in your own words, or if you or someone you know has been wrongfully convicted or accused of a crime, please write to crimeincourtchannel@gmail.com and tell us your real true crime encounters. Thanks for watching.